Welcome to the Onside Podcast, a podcast on innovation-driven entrepreneurship. Join us on this journey as we amplify the power of disruptive ideas.
Thanks so much for joining us and welcome to the Onside Podcast, the podcast for innovation-driven entrepreneurship. This season, we're taking a deeper dive into women's entrepreneurship across Canada and highlighting women entrepreneurs who are making a difference, change leaders, and folks who are really trying to make a difference by activating a more inclusive and innovative ecosystem here in Canada. These fireside chats and conversations are being brought to you part of Onside's Start Now Incubator project, which is supporting diverse and intersectional women across Canada to start and grow their businesses. And we're very thankful to the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy for helping us and sponsoring us with that. I'm your host, I'm Alex McCann, and today on the Onside Podcast, we are being joined by a wonderful change maker who is transforming the beauty industry while redefining what it means to lead with purpose, culture, and systems impact. Jenn Harper is an award-winning founder and CEO of Cheekbone Beauty, a proudly indigenous-owned cosmetic company rooted in sustainability, representation, and belonging. Jenn is Anishinaabe and a member of Northwest Angle 33 First Nation in Kenora, Ontario. Her personal story is one of reconnection, resilience, and healing, and has shaped the mission of Cheekbone Beauty to help every Indigenous person see and feel their value in the world. Since launching Cheekbone, Jenn has gained national attention, including a standout appearance on Dragon's Den, and she's also been named Chatelain's Woman of the Year and a Canadian Business New Innovator, and one of Entrepreneur Magazine's 100 Women of Influence. Today, Cheekbone Beauty is sold at Sephora stores across Canada and at JCPenney locations in the U.S. Her company is recognized as both a Sephora Clean and Planet Positive brand. But beyond the shelves of Cheekbone is modeling a regenerative circular business. It's partnered with B Corp and Pack Collective and has reinvested over $250,000 in Indigenous communities across North America. Jenn continues to lead with clarity and intention, from sourcing ingredients to packaging and design. And we're so excited to be talking with her today about systems change, inclusive innovation, and building a beauty brand that's bigger than yourself. So Jenn, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to speak with you.
You've talked about this before, but I definitely know that your journey with your identity and intergenerational healing is something that's very powerful, and you've spoken about that, and how reclaiming your Indigenous roots has really influenced the founding of Cheekbone Beauty. Can you tell us a little bit about that connection there and how that relates to why you decided to create this wonderful company?
Yeah, so I grew up mostly with my mother for a majority of part of my life. I did have a relationship with my dad in my younger years and had spent sort of doing a back and forth down the QEW, if you will, in Ontario, where I grew up in the Niagara region in a city called St. Catharines. And my dad, until I was about 14, he did live in the Toronto area. And so I would spend a lot of time with him only on the weekends. And then for a small period when I was 12, I actually did live with him for my grade 6th year. And we had a good relationship. My dad is a very, traditionally, I always picture him as I think that model of the stoic native, just super quiet and really didn't say a lot, and only said things if they, I think, had to be said. I've learned a lot as I'm maturing about the importance of saying less, for sure. And I think of my dad when I think about that. But our relationship was not I think the typical father-daughter. I'd never felt super close to my dad. I knew he loved me and cared for me and tried to show me pieces of our culture in growing up. And I think sometimes when you're young, you don't recognize until years later of what was going on or what was happening. And so now I look back and I really see he was doing the best he could with what he knew and what he had. And that really plays into, I look back at both my parents. My mom is, I think fourth generation Canadian or origins from Ireland and Scotland. And both of them had their own traumas as parents. And as a parent myself, I really see, I don't think most of us going into parenthood, I know I sure didn't, and I recognize my parents sure didn't, the seriousness of raising children. And in particular, kids aren't resilient. I hate that statement now as an adult. I really believe it's such a lie the adults have told themselves to make us all feel better for the trauma we've caused our families. Um, and it's really important to include them in kids and so many things. And so learning that both of my parents did the best they could with what they had, but I didn't have, I think, a deep connection with my dad. And there's, so many things I wish happened differently, but didn't. And so I felt really disconnected from my Ojibwe culture and community. And that is really, I will own that, is probably my doing. Whether it's the typical stereotype that was happening in the 80s and 90s, I felt really ashamed of my heritage, and that was because of what other people were saying and other things I would overhear, and a lot of racism that would happen, and being the brunt of a joke, I guess. And now looking back, these were all misconceptions, unvalid and misplaced ways of thinking, and sort of like this unconscious bias that we gain as a society based on whatever issues are happening in the world at the time. And so learned that I didn't really love myself enough. I never really felt whole. And it's, years of therapy and healing that I now recognize, the deeper that I connected and started to learn about who I was and where I came from and my culture, which has only happened because of building this brand, the more I actually feel whole as a human. And I think working on ourselves is an everyday project and process that will never end. But I definitely feel truly proud in a healthy way of who I am and where I come from and all parts of me. When you are of mixed races and cultures, it's really hard to figure out where you fit in the world, and especially as a young person. So if I went to the res, of course I sounded white, even though I look the part. I sounded differently. I acted differently. I thought differently. And when I'm in my community with my mother, I certainly stand out because I look different. I had two brothers, three brothers my dad had after, and a sister on my dad's side, and a stepsister. And then my mom had two boys, and they were white because their dad was white. And so even in the home, I remember my one brother, he'd always be like, "Why are you so brown?" Just like stuff, little things like that. And so I stand out, and I didn't really feel like I fit in that family. I didn't feel like I fit in my other family. And so it creates a bit of an identity issue. But what Cheekbone Beauty has helped me do, there's so many levels of the healing that's happened on this journey, but identity is certainly one of them. And now, and I don't know if this is the process for everyone, but just grateful that I can feel comfortable in my own skin finally as a almost 50-year-old woman. But it did take a long time, and I think that happens for many of us for many different reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that and being very open and talking about that, because I think we're living in such a dynamic and multicultural world now where there are so many mixes of people and people, different historic legacies from colonialism and all kinds of things. And I think identity politics, is very strong nowadays, and trying to find place for where we are. So I really appreciate you sharing that that aspect of yourself. When you're, I know you talk about for Cheekbone Beauty, one of the things that you were trying to do with Cheekbone Beauty was create a brand or an experience where Indigenous people, in particular, could see themselves. And what I love about your brand, and at least in the imagery and things like that, is it's very very diverse and very very multicultural. Can you talk about how that idea kind of came to be the basis of what you wanted to do with Cheekbone Beauty?
Yeah. Being I guess a marketeer by by profession and at heart, you always look to think of the connections and how things connect. And so looking as you're building something around and really seeing how culture was used in many brands around the world that are now everyday staples in many of our lives, uh, that it was like the model we were striving for from the beginning. I think of IKEA, right? We have no idea all these words and these pieces of furniture are actually a language that belongs to a different culture, right? And we all know, I'm probably mess up all of the words when we say them, but the Kralik shell, you know what I mean? I've never actually looked up what the word means in their language, but it's a culture. It's a brand that was built on a culture, and we were ultimately trying to do the same thing, and for the whole sole purpose, as you mentioned, um, when I was growing up and obviously in this identity crisis, never did I have anywhere to look to be like, to feel like I belonged to a group and could feel seen. And I really think marketing and business has a role to play in so much of that now. We can see it the world is transformed. But when I was a young girl, I did not have a brand that I could relate to. And we've seen many, many brands over the last few decades come into be and really be there for a group of people or a culture, if you will. And so that's was the original idea from like maybe is elementary and juvenile as a place is where it started, but that was the whole purpose and still what we're trying to do. So whether we incorporating culture without appropriating it is always a really important piece that we think about as well. I come from my indigenous side of my family is extremely traditional. I am not. And so leaning on them and their insights, talking to my aunties, my dad, my siblings, spent a lot of time talking to my brother long before the launch about what this could look and feel like, without sort of uh, selling out, if you will, in some ways is the language I remember my brother using. And so when we think about how we name our products, what everything looks and feels like, when people find Cheekbone, I really didn't want there to be any question about who and how its origin and where it came from. And I really, unfortunately, there's many brands that exist in the world that no Indigenous person started, but they're using Indigenous ideas and teachings as their foundations. And so we really wanted to be here doing the authentic, real thing. And so we've embedded pieces of culture into everything that we do, and right down to even how the company structure, like the business model was built. We use is called the 7 grandfather teachings, which are in essence just incredible values and principles that any of us as humans could live by, but we've put those into our core values as a company. And so, and turn the 7 into sort of 3 main points that we focus on, with things like love and humility, respect, courage, honesty. All of those things are like, and that really, those things are important when you're building a business. And my whole thought when I was doing this alone back many years ago was, if I could build a company, what would I want it to look like? And we've all worked for companies, so we know what the ones we don't want it to look like. And then you could build from there and be like, we sort of were at this place where we could make this look and feel like any way we wanted to. And so why not, again, start from the foundations and make this built on a culture? And that's what we've been trying to achieve.
Okay. I love it. Well, I'll just say, so I did bring, so if anyone, I did bring my cheekbone lip gloss today. I think this one is the Pink Moon. I can't actually see it on my glasses on right now. And, I saw that actually before I heard you speak, because you were at the Halifax Wonder Woman last year, I think it was. And you had your pink and everything. But I saw your brand. Well, the first time I heard about it, I was in the Sephora and saw it there. And I was like, oh, what is this? It's like, it's pink, it's poppy, it's got great colors, it stands out. And then I was like, I love that name, the name Cheekbone. It like popped for me. And so I really thought, oh, this is something that's different. I had no idea it was an indigenous-owned company or something. And then I started looking into it. And so I was like, oh, this is something new. This is something different. This is something I'd not seen before. And to be able to get into Sephora is a huge accomplishment. Well, what made you be interested in the beauty industry in particular? Like, why did you, when you were thinking about this, were you just like, I love makeup, I love beauty, just, because there's probably, trying to reflect indigenous culture in a business, you could have done it in, I don't know, a tech business or something like that. Why was it important, or what drew you to kind of the beauty industry?
That is a great question. Because I've been very truthful and have shared, if I knew what I know now, I would have never, ever, ever, ever be in this space. And not because I don't love beauty and products. Um, it's just because the competitive nature, the I think the hefty lift that building this kind of brand really is. But being naive and a believer in anything that is possible, and really not knowing truly how hard, and I guess the giants in this space truly control everything. Most of us aren't aware of like what a conglomerate is until you're in the retail space and then understand like there's like ownership of like five conglomerates and they own everything in the beauty space essentially, right? And so to try to build something in that area is extremely, extremely challenging. But I was very passionate about this idea. It actually stemmed from the dream I had. It's why I chose lip gloss. And then when I was thinking about, getting, if I'm really going to do this, I was excited because it is a category or an industry that I was always an avid consumer of and passionate about. And so I've always loved makeup. I've always loved beauty products. I can spend hours in a Sephora like store or a Shoppers Drug Mart just touching and feeling things and playing with products. I feel like that's something that I've always appreciated, and learning, skin, probably more obsessed with skincare than everything else. But I thought color it would be so fun. If I knew what I knew now about color, I would have definitely picked skincare first. Um, yeah, it's just a love, and then the passion was there, but it was that dream. It's like I couldn't let go of those three little girls. So in January of 2015, the origin story of Cheekbone is I was selling seafood in my regular job. I'd always been in the food industry, worked in hospitality for like 12 years, and then went into sales and marketing for the next like 10, 12. And had a dream, literally pop out of bed middle of the night, and it was just so evident to me, like this was going to be the next thing that I was going to do. As crazy as that sounds, like a dream of three native little girls covered in lip gloss. All I remember is their brown skin and rosy cheeks, and literally then spent the next 2 years before we launched an e-commerce store learning what kind of products we could bring into the world and what that would look like. And it wasn't as challenging as one may think. The barrier to entry in beauty is actually very, very low. It's how someone like me was able to start. And then when I got into the industry, I was like, there is serious room for change because of how things were being done, the ingredients people were using, the kinds of packaging. There was so much space for innovation in the beauty industry, and there still is. But it's very expensive to achieve. So the early days were private label, and the cost of that is really low, and that's why so many people start beauty brands, because it's a relatively easy start place. You can't What I've learned, and what I've learned from working with large retailers, is if anyone can do that, then they're really paying attention. What you need to come to the industry with is a really new, whether it's an innovative product that's like transformative, or your brand has to be doing something completely different than everybody else's. And so we had a great story. I think that's what people fell in love with Cheekbone, was the story. It's like this like complete, um, you know, me being the one who doesn't know anything about this, figures this out sort of. And now we're over 10 years in, right? So when I look back, I'm like, and I look back and I think of, I would show up legitimately at every networking event I could possibly be at, meet as many people as I could, just seeking advice and information. And I cannot, when I look back, I'm like, I'm kind of mad at all these people. Why did anyone tell me this was a crazy idea? But then I also recognize, I'm like, they probably saw how stinking, stupidly passionate I was about it and didn't want to break my heart, right? Like meeting really smart people like that I'm still connected to this day. And now I want to be like, why didn't you stop me? This is crazy. Like how, why? But
Well, I'm
the
glad
truth,
those people did not stop you.
yeah. And the truth is, I'm really still so passionate about it. It's just that it's so freaking hard. And that's what makes it a challenge, right? But I feel like we're doing the last 2 years at Cheekbone has been pretty incredible that we've really discovered things like, and this is advice for anyone listening, you better know your product market fit out of the gate. Did not. It took us 8 years to get there. That's ridiculous. And thankfully, we've been, by, the grace of so many things, still in this space, able to stand and say we have a business. But there's been some really tough years where we've almost not been able to still be here. And it shouldn't take a business that long to figure that out. We're still working right now on some big fixes within the organization, trying to make sure that we're operating as at the most efficient pace we possibly can so that we could survive another disaster should that come our way. And it's just things that I didn't know any of this. I was never an entrepreneur. I didn't grow up around entrepreneurs. I've only ever worked for people in a specific area of a business, not knowing anything about the other aspects of it and how serious it is to have there's three main buckets in a business: finances, operations, and marketing. And unfortunately, just because I knew marketing to some level, not even, I wouldn't even have ever called myself an expert, doesn't mean your business is going to succeed. Because if you don't get those other two buckets like in organized and in place immediately, there will be huge trouble within the business. And so learning, as much as I say, and I've learned this, that we're in the beauty industry, we're technically not. We're actually, like, we need to be the most efficient operations kind of logistics business before anything else, which is kind of crazy to say, but that's what it is. And we're in CPG, which just means a product-based business. And that's where it's critical to understand how many, like, the unit economics the math has to be mathing and working. And you have to know exactly how many of those things you have to have in order for this to survive. Because I could have the most brilliant, innovative ideas, in which I feel like I've been on that path and we've been doing that, but that's not is what's going to help Cheekbone survive at the end of the day. We have to have all those other pieces in place for this to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important that you say that, because we have a lot of people who have really great ideas. I'm probably one of these people. I have a new idea every day. No word of a lie. I have learned to control myself a little bit. But if you don't have those other pieces, you could have a beautiful, lipstick or a beautiful product. But if you don't know how much it costs to get from point A to point B, or how much are customers willing to pay for that, or, what do you do if a shipment gets lost? Do you have money to cover that? What is your financial situation to be able to cover some of those losses? Or sometimes you have a great product, but if you don't actually know how to market it, nobody knows about it. So the kind of trifecta that you're talking about, was there anything, not to get super down, no, don't tell us anything. Was there anything that made you realize that you needed to figure out things a little bit more? Like, was there something, like something didn't show up at a customer's location or a client's location, or what made you realize, oh, I'm the CEO, I've been running this business, but was there something that made you say, oh, you know what, maybe I need to take a step back and up my game or up my skills? Like, what was there something that made you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was recognizing that, we have something really great here, and not understanding why those parts weren't working. Why is cash flow always tight? Why operationally are we sort of dropping the ball in all these places? And it was 2 years ago that I was like, okay, I cannot fully put trust in people if they can't articulate to me why those things are happening. And that became super clear. If I'm asking a question to someone on our team and they can't be clear to me what is happening or what's going on, then they're not the right person to do that job. And I had to get really honest with myself about that. and you have to make changes. It's the team. Like that's what I've learned 1000% is what makes a company successful is the team and the people there. And they have to be able to tell me exactly what's going on with what thing. And if they don't understand it, then that's where I knew there was trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. But at the end of the day, companies are made of people. Made of
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not in the, I really do believe that people are well-intentioned, right? Like no one wants to not be the reason why something isn't working. And I really believe the intentions are wonderful for, many of the people we've hired. Not everyone. There's a few really bad decisions in the past, but for the most part, I really do believe everyone's intentions are good. But it's sometimes as a human, it's hard to recognize what you don't know, and it's important to at the same time, right? And it is one of our company's core values: humility. If you can't admit to yourself that you can't do this well and need to seek help in it, then there's a problem. That's a red flag
Mhm.
for us immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, well, I'm glad, whatever happened, you're getting on the right track because I want to be able to keep getting my lip gloss as much as possible. So,
Oh, you will. We have lots. In some cases, too many. And that's part of the problem sometimes, right? You're like,
yeah.
operationally, why do we have to? But by the end of this year, I can assure the world that we have done a deep dive into how to fix a lot of the issues that we were having. And I have full confidence that what we're doing now is on the path then to watch cheekbone scale exponentially. And so everyone just better watch out because that lip gloss is going to be everywhere.
Awesome, awesome. I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that. Well, talking about kind of scaling, and you mentioned a couple things when you were just talking now. One was I want to kind of maybe see if we can talk about maybe two things. One, you mentioned about innovation, which of course we're talking about innovation at Onsite all the time. And I know that you have done a lot of work around sort of product innovation and looking at everything from the packaging to the type of ingredients or those kinds of things. So innovation is definitely something I'm curious and want to kind of hear your opinion about. And then the other thing related to scaling is financing. So we're gonna jump into those two things if we have a couple minutes. But tell me a little bit about innovation. Like how does innovation play a role in your company?
It played a big role in the first 5, 6 years. We've actually scaled back a ton. We literally do no longer employ full-time R&D team, which we did for many, many years. And that's in it's like this, was it a good decision? Wasn't it? It helped me really understand ingredients with the support of people in that spaces to help me understand how things are made and how products are formulated, because we were hands-on. They were like here with us. I could ask questions. And then it also helped us work on some really incredible innovative projects. However, I think it's really important now from a financial perspective to truly understand when and how much innovation can a small company do. And really, the truth is, we were too small to be working on the things that we were trying to work on. As much as like I want those things so bad, we did this one project called the Niagara Project, where we were taking active ingredients from grape waste. So the stems, and we're in a wine region in Canada here in the Niagara region. And so it was just such an amazing, fun project. And we proved that it works. We're sitting on what we've made in our stability ovens and our fridges and freezers here. And we know that it works. And that was really exciting to do. But as a small business, we don't have the capital to actually extend that project any further. And when you get amazing funding that comes from our government to support innovation, they never 100% a project like that support it. It's like 50, and that's still not a lot, right? In order to get a team of a chemist in full time, and then also the team you're working usually with a university, so that you have access to. Our lab doesn't have all of the equipment that would be required to work on those kinds of projects. So it's really, 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 really expensive. And I think there's some numbers financially around what you can do, and it should be, a business of our size. It's anywhere from under 20% for sure to 10% of that. But we did so much in the first few years that I think at this point where I feel very confident about what we've made. We are now working on some new stuff because we are, playing around with skincare and this idea of skincare. And so we are going to need to bring back some R&D capital into the business at some point, but it's a really expensive thing to do, but also very necessary to stay like on top of what's happening and to really think about what uniquely different you're doing than all the other brands in the space. And so I sit in this sort of really unbalanced position, and I'm sure no one, this is not even a great answer for anyone because you need it. You cannot. I believe if you're going to be truly innovative and bring something new into the world, you have to think about that, and you have to have some budget for that. It just depends where. I just know we went way too heavy on it for the first 5 years and should have really lightened our load a long time ago. But maybe if I'm going to look back, maybe in 5 years and 10 years, I'll say something different when we get to continue the Niagara project, for instance, if there is something there. And who knows, I'll say, oh, I'm so glad we did that in the early, who knows? I've learned that over these years, my viewpoint and opinion has certainly changed, but I just know how costly it was for us to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
learned so much, and I have so much more insight that I never would have had I not had those kinds of people on our team full time.
Yeah. Okay. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit, and I think you're right. There is that balance of like, how much innovation do you need? You need to stay cutting edge, and then how do you finance all that? And then we're talking a little bit, or we're going into you've got some new things on the horizon. You looking maybe new products, things like that. Thinking about scaling, and I know for Cheekbone to grow as a beauty wellness brand, indigenous woman led brand. Can you talk to me a little bit about what the financing landscape is like for a company like yours, and how do you tackle that? Whether that's for your innovation type projects or just sort of generally, because companies all need money, whether it's working capital or for investments in innovation. How have you been able to sort of navigate that?
Yeah, again, this is going to come with like two opinions. Number one, like if you have something and you have already tested the market and it's not selling, no amount of capital you get is going to solve that problem. Like legitimately sales revenue answers and solves so many of your problems as a business. So you need to have, and that's where knowing the product market fit, all of those things have to be in place in such an early space. But if you're this brilliant person and you've come up with this really innovative idea and you just need the capital to make it happen, there's multiple avenues, right? There's traditional VC uh, capital. A lot of times banks don't invest in a brand new business, so you're not going to get that unless it's a loan. And I believe there's nothing wrong with getting a loan. If your idea is that great, then go for it. And that way you're not giving up any equity in such an early position of the brand or the business. But this is all, I have no idea what other people's businesses are. And so it's really based on like what kind of business you have, that where and how you should get money, or even if you should really. Like honestly, I've met so many founders that have by forced decision almost have never been able to get funding and now have proven they have incredible businesses, right? We always need a little support as we're growing and scaling. And that's where the banks do come in, or things like the BDC in Canada, right? You have loans basically, but it's backed by the government. And it's important to know what kind of business you are and what kind of capital you're going to need, because it's all based on the type of business, and the answer is going to be different for everyone depending on what they want to build. I think back and I know and understand how fortunate we are in the position that Cheekbone is, that we did get an investor to come on so early, especially because I knew nothing about this space. They've been here and to help us grow. They're not like traditional VC where it had to be this 5-year turnaround. Like we've talked about, this is a long game. So I'm feeling super supportive from the investor that we do have. But not all businesses need an investor. Like there's a lot of businesses that can grow without it. And it's also understanding if you're going to go down that path, they want an exit, right? That's the goal. So, at some point, either you're paying them back or somebody else is buying out their position, like usually some form of like private equity or something like that. And so it's just important to know who you are as the founder, what kind of business you're building, and every industry is going to be different about what kind of capital you're taking to do that. And I mean, sometimes I think back and I'm like, should I have just got a loan? Right. Or, yeah, but who knows? I might not be doing I have no idea the answers if I went back and what I would do. I just know for the next business I build, I certainly know all the areas of mistakes that I've made that I wouldn't. But I won't know this portion, how it's going to work out until the end of this one happens, right? So, yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I guess is.
Exactly.
Well, tell us, you've talked about your background, your history, your family, and a lot of the work that we do at Onsite, we have a lot of very diverse women entrepreneurs who've engaged with us. Some of them Indigenous, some Black women, immigrant women. Women from rural parts of Canada as well. So quite a very diverse group of folks. Do you have any insight that you might be able to share with us as an Indigenous woman-led business or entrepreneur? Is there anything that you think would be helpful or useful for folks who are out there who are not from the mainstream, who are of different kinds of identities, who are thinking about a business, beauty or otherwise? Because you already told us maybe watch out if it's in the beauty sector. But what are your thoughts about being an Indigenous woman entrepreneur in Canada today?
Yeah, I think I have so
Small
many
question.
thoughts.
Small question.
Yeah. That you know, I know what my culture has done to help build the brand and who I am, and it's part of me. But if when we're building something, if we think that's what's going to set us apart, maybe from what exists and now I'm talking, you're having these conversations, whether it's be where you're getting capital, if you're going into retail, or if you're looking for a B2B support in any way, most other places are not honestly going to care about those things. And I'm just telling you the truth, like that. You need to build a solid business, and it can't be like the who we are or where we come from in the business world. It actually doesn't play out maybe like we think we would want it to. Because I really believe though, culture from around the world will add flavor and something unique. You have a unique vantage point, a different viewpoint, right? When I think about, even if you think about fashion or design, like all of these things are so unique from many different communities and cultures around the world that can be who you are and what your business is, of course, but it's not going to be something that we think the greater business world at large would be the reason, right? It has to be that your design is like something they've never seen before and going to be unique in the marketplace. But because I think I meet a lot of, in particular, obviously, because I do a lot of work, and they would position it that like, but I'm an Indigenous owned business, or I'm a woman owned business. And then once you do that, we must recognize that those are boxes perhaps that we're checking for people. And that's just the honest truth. So, I mean, like, be bold and use your way of doing things as your way of doing business, because I think that's what is really unique about Cheekbone. I believe our indigenous roots is what sets us completely apart from what is happening in the beauty space. We talk about clean beauty, but we talk about it in a way that it is beyond clean. And we talk about it because of our ancestors and how they took care of the land. We think about ingredients not only being clean and safe for the human, because that's when you look at clean and you see clean this, clean that. One, there's no global body to recognize what that even means. So brands, many brands are what we call clean washing now and greenwashing. They're just saying they are. And if I looked at their ingredients, I'd be like, well, in my opinion, that's not clean, that's not clean, that's not clean, right? Because I have a different view of it because this is how we built Cheekbone. And when you look at our website and learn why we made the decisions about the kind of ingredients we use and the kind of ingredients we don't use, we are trying to educate the consumer and then let the consumer decide what kind of consumer they want to be. And so we looked at ingredients from, okay, yes, of course they have to be safe for the human, but they must also be very safe for the planet. And so how do we do that? And the reason that is so serious and we take that so serious is because of our indigenous roots. So that's what's sort of setting us aside in the beauty marketplace. And that's the position that we're putting ourselves in, that we're like in this unique place where clean and sustainability, those are the things that matter to us. And here's why. And then using a lot of education and evidence onto why and understanding ingredients deeply so that the consumer gets that part. So it's our culture and that's who we are and we're embracing it and proud of it. But I've learned, and I've been here now for over 10 years, that me being an indigenous woman doesn't matter to a lot of people in that sense that we think we might want it to. So just so that's super clear for anyone thinking, but I'm this, and that's why this is better. It's all going to be about the product. If it's a product that you're starting, right? And that's all I can really answer for, is because that's my experience is in the product-based business. I don't know anything else about any other kind of business.
Well, I think that's appreciate that advice and that perspective. I think no matter what you're doing, whatever your business with CPG or other kind of business, people want to bring their authentic self to the business. But what I'm hearing is it's still really important, and they should, and we should celebrate that. But it also has to be a good product that makes sense, or a good service that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, nobody's going to buy it just because you're a woman or a LGBTQIA plus or indigenous. If it's not a good product or service, it's not going to work.
No, and it's just interesting how I've learned that myself. Like I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get how this works, right? And this is their game. They made it, right? The capitalism, the system, the partners, that like this is their thing. And so I've had to learn. I don't come from that space. I was in a completely different industry before starting this, and working on completely different things. And so it's just, these are from my learnings and understanding, right? When there's things that we think matter so much, for the most part, unfortunately, the rest of the world doesn't think they matter so much. And that's just how it is.
Well, hopefully we can change that a little bit. Hopefully we can change that a little bit and get your products out there so more people see them and can experience them. And then as we kind of wrap up, are there any new products or services that you've got that you want to tell people about so they can kind of check them out? And I also want to make sure, because we got a special opportunity for anyone who is listening today and part of our on-site community, because we do have a special discount code that we were able to get from Cheekbone Beauty. So I'm very excited about that. But before I tell people what it is, what are some products or things you have going on that you want people to know about?
Oh, wow. Okay. So we launched a lip oil last year, and I never understood lip oil because I'm of an older generation and my team is younger, and they were like dying to launch a lip oil. And so when I started learning about what a lip oil is In the mass market, it's basically a glorified lip gloss, right? It has all of the same ingredients that lip gloss has. And then if you look, they're adding some oils at the end of the inky, which means there's not even very much of them in the product. So when we worked on the product, we had some old componentry, and componentry is the packaging that you put the formula in when it goes to market. And so we had our old lip gloss packaging, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to bring a product into the world unless we sort of test the market with it and see what people think of it. And so we had launched it last year in those old lip gloss containers and had people playing with the lip oil over the last year and a bit, and people have loved the product. And so then we saw the feedback and we made its own new component now, because at Cheekbone everything kind of has its place so this is our Harmony lip gloss, the one you have, same thing. This one's refillable, and that's where all our lip glosses live. So now the new lip oil, and I don't even have one on my desk here to show you, comes in its beautiful own packaging, and we redid it so that the doe foot, which is the applicator that goes to your lip, literally it's like a cup of the product is sitting in there and you smear it all over your lips. But our lip oil, just so this is where, when I started to understand formula, this is 100% natural actual oils that are healing for your lips, and you'll feel your lips, like literally they will feel so much better when you're wearing this product. So anyway, this is what we've done and why we stand out in this space, because we've made this so that it's like more naturally derived, better for you, better for the planet. And then it comes in this really cute, obviously new packaging. That will be the forever housing of the lip oil. But so that's really exciting that will come out not till I think the end of next week. We'll finally have them, because we just slowly exited. We had a sale, so we were exiting all of the older componentry and there wasn't many left. So we're happy to be able to bring that into the world. And then we also have a really fun, which I can't mention what it is, but we have fun launching new shades. So we have a new lip gloss shade coming out in August as well, which is going to be super, super fun. And we this year are going to be hosting in downtown Toronto our For Future Generations event, as usual. On September 30th, we have a day where we launch products or a product, and a portion of the profits of it go to our Cheekbone Beauty Scholarship Fund. So that is happening on September 30th in Toronto, and it's going to be on Queen West, and more details for that will come. So if anyone is in the city that day and wants to come by and meet us and have some fun, we'll have all kinds of activations happening at the event as well, but more details for that later. But we're just about to take, as a team, the entire first week of August off. We shut down. We call it our summer shutdown. We shut down for 1 week. And that's because a lot of our partners that do our larger scale manufacturing are in Italy. And when I used to go there every year to meet them, you could never go in August because they completely shut down, some of them for a whole month. And I was like, I love this Italian way of thinking and living, because why not take a whole month off in August? But we did a week, and it's a nice way to have a break. It's a nice way that everyone, even sometimes, I don't think I've ever taken a real vacation because I'm just always attached to the business. But usually this is the 1 week of the year where I feel like I can disconnect a little bit, and it's very healing and healthy. So we're excited that that's happening next week. And I'm really not taking a break because I'm off to Japan for a trade mission with Canada. So I'm not getting a break, but at the end of it, it'll be a little bit of a break.
So some people, I was going to say, yay for you that you're getting a break.
I was like, I'm not really taking a break. But at the end, so my husband's joining me, and we will spend 3 days in Kyoto, and there's no work attached to that at all. So that'll be a complete break. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I lived in Japan for 2 years, so I think you will love Japan. I'll send you some pro tips afterwards.
Thank you.
But you'll love it. And I'm so happy for your staff that'll be off. We'll be looking out for your new products that'll be out there. For folks that are listening, I was reminded I got to get the discount code out there. So the discount code for our Onside listeners is Onside30. And I guess if you're interested in the lip oil, maybe you can get the lip oil. So Onside 30 for all of our listeners. And I want to thank Cheekbone and Jenn in particular for spending time with us today. It's been super amazing to have you here today. We had some folks listening in. I didn't have my glasses on, so I apologize if I missed anyone's questions, but really appreciative of your time and everything that you're doing. And I do hope you have a rest for the rest of the week or weekend. And for those who are listening, if you want to know a little bit more about Cheekbone, I think you can go to the website. What's the website, Jenn?
Cheekbonebeauty.com.
Cheekbonebeauty.com. And if you want to learn more about Onside, you can go to onsidenow.ca and learn more about our programs and services. And really appreciate your time today. So thank you, Jenn.
Thank you for having me. And I'm Cheekbone Jenn on Instagram if anybody wants to follow me too.
Okay, that sounds great.